Here with Stu Marshall on the Metal Command radio show. Stu, it's great to have you back on the radio show, and let's talk about what you have currently going on right now.
Hey, Tony. So, mate, look, for the last 12 months, it's been pretty much Night Legion for me. And for those listeners that don't know, Night Legion's a power metal band from Australia that I formed with guys that are from fairly well-known bands. So, you know, the singer's from a pretty popular band and you know, the bass player's from a popular band. And so but they're really good friends of mine. So we pulled the band together. We did the album, which we got signed to Massacre Records last year. It's just a self-titled Night Legion. So that came out in October. And we've been playing a bunch of shows in Australia because the last kind of 10 years, I've been touring overseas, and I haven't played hardly any shows in my home country. So I thought it's time to get a band together that we can come tour here. And so we've been really lucky. We just did a Ross the Boss tour. Ross played here. He did 4 shows, and we did the East Coast run with Ross, which was great to hang with him again. And of course, we played together in Deathdealer. So it's been a busy time with Night Legion. We released the album. We've been doing a bunch of gigs. And, you know, right now, this week, my new phase begins with Deathdealer album number 3. So we start production on that. So it's been a great, very busy time, but really, really good. And couldn't have asked for more from the Night Legion guys. They've had a ball.
You know, it's pretty cool that you formed a band called Night Legion because, you know, with the other bands you're involved with, you know, it's very difficult to be able to go out and say, hey, let's go play a gig or let's go on a tour for the weekend or for the week. But it seems with Night Legion, you got a lot of great Australian musicians where you're able to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know what happened with Deathdealer got so busy with everybody's individual other bands because, you know, Deathdealer is a band. It's not just a project, and because we've toured it. But, you know, Ross got real successful and busy with his RTB band. Sean got real successful with Dennis Sherman and the work with Cage, and they went off touring. So I had 12 months where I was kind of twiddling my thumbs, and as you know, I wound up the Empires of Eden stuff a couple of years ago, and I thought, you know what a great opportunity to get together with my close friends. You know, the singer's one of the best singers in the world I'm working with. You know, Vo is just an incredible vocalist, a lovely guy, and it made perfect sense to pull it together. So it's been it's a really good time to get out and play live, and that's the whole point. I hope to get the Empires of Eden stuff live, but that's never happened. So, yeah, here we are.
Well, you know, with Deathdealer, I think what really helped take you guys to another level was that you did that tour with the Metal All-Stars and you opened up for them. And it seemed to open a band up to a much wider audience. And I think that's really, to me, that was like the turning point for the band where, you know, things really started kind of taking off for you.
Yeah, thank you, mate. I think what's really important to note is we see Deathdealer as a band. It's not a side project, and it's not, you know, it's just very collaborative. You know, all the guys want to be there, and we really did prove on that tour that people, I guess, dug what we were doing. You know, when, you know, for any of you musician friends that are listening in, everybody knows the hardest thing to do is to support a big headliner, because the headliners, you know, they charge $100 a ticket. People want to see them. So when a cover band, not a cover band, but a support band, comes out, and especially when people don't know the songs, you have to kill. You know what I mean? Like, you can't go out and half-ass it, because people will just, they'll walk away or go to the bar. And so our job was to try and turn people on to the band that hadn't really heard it before. And the response was like nothing I've ever seen in my life out of any band I've played in. So, yeah, the vibe is still very strong. And all the guys, when they're on tour, people are asking about Deathdealer. You know, when Sean's in Europe, people are asking when the next album's coming. So that's kind of nice. And, you know, the world is kind of flooded at the moment with some great acts. So it's nice to think that, you know, people that have heard us remember us and want to see it again.
Well, you know, you finished the Night Legion album and came out, and you know, I always know that you have a lot of songs and a lot of stuff going on. But Stu, I have to ask you, Have you written any other songs? Do you have anything written for maybe the next Night Legion album, or are you more concentrating on the Deathdealer release now?
No. I sort of we finished the Night Legion album and we started touring on it here. We did a bunch of shows and that was pretty much it. My focus then was just to start really taking a bit of time off in between shows because I've been non-stop for the last 10 years. So I'm now sectioning off my life for each of these different albums to give them the focus they deserve. For the new album for Deathdealer, we've got 10 songs together. We've got 8 complete, and we're going to write probably 3 or 4 more. So I'm real happy with the progress on that, and we're feeling pretty relaxed about the schedule. It's sounding great.
Well, Stu, we all know, if we follow you on Facebook, we're friends with you. I've known you for a while now. You're a huge guitar aficionado. I know you have this huge collection of ESPs, but now you seem to be collecting some Paul Reed Smith and most notably a lot of really killer Gibson guitars. And let's talk about your guitar collection, man. You're a big guitar aficionado, and you always seem to be having, showing off a new guitar that is just absolutely stunning.
Well, it's funny you say that. It's as we're talking now, it's Sunday morning here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm literally in the car driving back from picking up another guitar. Yeah, dude, look, I'm absolutely obsessed with guitars. I've got about 45 at the moment in the house. And yeah, look, I've been with ESP. I was with ESP for 15 years and had a great relationship. I played nothing but ESP, and I honoured the endorsement, and they built me a beautiful custom shop signature model, which was beautiful, and I had a great relationship with ESP Japan and ESP USA. And I got my first Les Paul custom a couple of years ago, and I found myself playing it so much so that I couldn't continue with a conviction in my, I have to be honest. I just said to ESP, I said, listen, I'm going to have to start playing these Gibsons. I can't not do that when that's what my heart's telling me to do. And so I ended up with 15 Les Paul customs out of sort of a surge over 18 months, and I've still got 13 of them. A lot of really nice axes made, and every guitar has songs in it, right? So that's what helps me kind of stay fresh, go down to the studio and pick up a Les Paul custom, or I'm really into the I got a white SG custom I'm playing at the moment, and I played that on the Ross the Boss tour. It's actually kind of a tribute axe to Ross, because Ross's original, I think it's a 62 SG custom, white custom is what he used on the Manowar albums, and so I ended up getting a 62 reissue and decking it out just like Ross's guitar, and dude, what's not to like about guitars, you know what I mean? Like, I just love them. They made me play differently, and let's face it, it's a cheap hobby. You're into high-performance sports cars, right? Like,
and cameras.
That's big boy. And cameras, that's big boy money, Like, the stuff I'm talking about is easily attainable for anybody. But the stuff you're into is, big money. So, it's a cheap hobby. I love it, dude. So, yeah, about 45. A lot of Gibsons at the moment. I can reveal I'm talking to a guitar company about a possible endorsement, but I'll wait till that firms up before I say who that's going to be with.
Well, being a big Gibson fan, obviously, they filed for bankruptcy, and for you, as someone that's followed them for a very, very long time and really loves Gibson guitars, what do you think changed? What do you think led to that bankruptcy?
Look, mate, I've had opinions on this for a while, and I've been holding back on social media because I thought, it's just one man's opinion. They simply lost their way. So out of all the Les Pauls and all the Gibsons I've got, they're all pre-2012. And they simply lost their way. Their quality control went to shit. They started putting out these ridiculous designs, and they deviated from what made them the greatest guitar company on the planet, and that was quality and care and connecting with guitar players. they distanced themselves from caring about guitar players, and they diminished the brand as a result. And I'm actually excited that they've gone into bankruptcy, because they're going to be taken over, or they are taken over by a group of people that want to bring it back to its former glory.
Right.
And the business went south because they deviated and started putting out consumer electronics. It actually had little to do with guitars, because their guitars still sell outrageously well, but they invested so much money into this consumer electronic garbage that they blew it. And but let's see them reissue, the late 70s and late 80s Gibson Les Pauls. Let's see them reissue that stuff. Let's see them, get an artist endorsement roster again of real players, and put out guitars that people want to play, not a $6,000 guitar that's got problems. That's what they're doing. So
right.
To me, it's real simple. What's it would make Gibson great again, right? So.
That's a good motto.
Well, Stu, people always talk about the Les Pauls. They talk about the Flying V when it comes to Gibsons. But, the guitar for me that I love by Gibson, I love the way they sound. And, I don't play guitar that often, but when I do, this is the guitar I love to use. And that is the Gibson Explorer. And talk about that model, because that's a model that doesn't really get talked about too much.
Oh yeah, I got four Explorers. I got two white ones, a thing called a New Century, and a cherry red one. They're built for rock, and they're heavy. Like, a lot of people don't understand, they're actually a lot heavier than a Les Paul. And great guitars, mate. Look, all Gibsons are great. That's the thing. Anyone comes to my studio and hangs, they're picking up the Gibsons, so. And then the other truth of the matter is, there are some famous bands out there that have massive endorsements with, Jackson and ESP, but they track with Gibsons, and that information is freely available if you want to go look for it. One of those bands is Anthrax. Scott Ian says himself, every album that Anthrax released was on his 81 Flying V, and so I think only recently he had Jackson kind of match the feel of that guitar, but that's on a video that he talks about, so I'm not talking out of school. But yeah, they're great tools, man. They're built to rock.
So as far as the Deathdealer stuff goes, Stu, how would you describe the album? Like, how would you describe the new songs that are coming on this record? And I know it's a little early to talk about it, but I know you're going into the production stage of this record, and talk about what these songs sound like on this third Deathdealer album as opposed to the first couple of them.
Man, it's pretty different. I think with the first album, it was called Warmaster. It was just head down, aggressive power metal, very, very aggressive album. The second album had a lot of orchestral stuff on it, so I really brought the orchestral game, which gave a lot more texture, and the songs were longer, and some of them were concepty. This one, it's probably a little bit of a blend. There's almost no orchestral work on this new album, but there's a little bit of a King Diamond thing happening here and there, and but the thing that Sean and I do really well together is just pure aggressive power metal, and that's the thing that we kind of just accept is when we get together, it's fast, almost thrashy tempo, aggressive power metal, and you get someone like Sean who has such a unique, gravelly, powerful voice. I tend to write, I never really think about it until I hear back the album, but I tend to write in a very aggressive style. And so that's what you're going to get on this album. So far, the songs are very diverse. We've got, a ballad on the album. We've got, some Sabbathy kind of influences and stuff like that. But it's probably going to be the album that defines, really, for people when they hear the three albums, they're going to get a really good picture of what Deathdealer is about.
Well, it's magical album number 2 or 3 now, and that seems to be the magic number for a lot of people at this point. Like, a lot of bands, when they get the album number 3, it's usually one of their best albums, and that's kind of been the tradition for the last maybe 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, I think, look, you know what, it's got to be honest. You can't just go through the motions. You know, Sean is an incredibly critical guy to work with, and I love that. I'm very critical. You know, so we've always been aligned with our view that, in our opinion, it's got to be the best, or it just doesn't make the album.
Right.
And that's only our opinion, you know what I mean? But we're united in that opinion. So I can say hand on heart, you know, the 2 albums we've released, we really believe in them, and we spend a lot of time making sure that the material's right. And anything that, like, we've got songs we recorded you'll never hear, you know, because it's just like, nah, it just doesn't stack up. So, you know, I'm not here to waste people's time and put out half-assed stuff. It's got to be right.
You know, on the first couple of Deathdealer albums, you did re-recordings of Empires of Eden songs. Say, you know, a couple songs that really didn't see the light of day, but they were on your Empires of Eden project that you were doing. And do you have any of those Empires of Eden songs you plan on re-recording for this next Deathdealer album that would maybe fit in the other songs that you guys have written for it?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because I also did that with Night Legion. The Night Legion album has 2 previous Empires of Eden tracks on it. But with Deathdealer, we recorded a Japanese bonus track called Triumphant Agony on the Triumphant Victory. I've got the Warlock album title in my head. Yeah, we did this song for the Japanese release of the first album. It's called Triumphant Victory, and the song was written about the film Pacific Rim, you know, with the robots and the monsters and stuff. And I think it's one of the finest things I've ever been a part of, and it hit the Japanese market only, and no one's really heard it. And we played it live, and people lost their minds. So I was talking to Sean about putting it on the album, but the thing we've got 10 tracks already. I'm going to be writing 3 more. And I like short albums. I like 9-10 track albums myself, because I just think that our attention span is low these days, you know, and the great albums that we listened to in the 80s, you know, they're only 8 songs long. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a surplus of material that it's possible that song may not even make it, based on the fact that it's kind of rehashing old material. So, but yeah, that's kind of the answer to that.
Great, man.
So you were asking about Empires of Eden. The answer would be no, not on this new album. Sorry, I digressed. I talked about the bonus track, so yeah, forgive me there.
You know, the music industry's changed a lot, Stu, and it seems that with all these older artists dying off, there really is nobody out there to replace them. And do you maybe feel that the next big band or the next icon may come out, or do you think that is going to be something that may never happen?
Well, I think even bands that can be the next big thing. There's so many. Dude, I listen to bands all the time that kick my ass. There is just not a financial industry there to support them to actually get out. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the bands that we all love and see, they're legacy artists. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're legacy bands that deserve their legacy. You know, a really great example of a classic legacy band that's reinvented themselves, in my view, is Creator. I think the later Creator material is as strong as anything that they were putting out years ago. But Creator are so well known that they have an industry behind them that supports them on tour. Now, I just don't think that in this day and age that there's an industry, a cash industry, to support the expenses to get a young band out touring, to have that ability to become the next big thing. I think It's going to be a YouTube kind of explosion more than it is going to be the old school touring. And, you know, let's face it, you know, while some people are sadly leaving this heavy metal realm, we've got bands that are still killing it, like Camelot and Primal Fear, and these bands, in my view, are classic kind of legacy bands, but they're still fully functional and fully powerful and releasing great material. So,
Right.
If anyone's going to be taking the mantle of the greats like Priest and Maiden when they fold up, it's definitely going to be these other bands like Camelot and Primal Fear and even Hammerfall to an extent. They're still fairly young guys. So. Yeah, but it's immensely tough out there. It's pay to play. You want to get onto a tour, you got to pay. If it's a big band, you got to pay a couple of grand a night.
Right.
Not unusual. So yeah, I think it's particularly tough at the moment. What did someone say? We're traveling t-shirt salesmen, right?
Right. That's a good one.
That's what we are. We're traveling t-shirt salesmen. So, but what a great time to be alive, man. With recording costs dropping, we can all make music, and technology's there. I can be talking to you across the world, and we can be writing music, and so it's all good.
And that's going into my next question. It seems like a lot of these older bands are just putting out killer albums, and I always talk about a band like Creator putting out just the best material of their career at this stage of their career, or even the new Judas Priest album sounds great. And, it's just amazing that, some of these older bands are putting out these amazing albums, even though that they've put out legendary stuff that influenced us all growing up. Some of these bands have put out some really awesome stuff.
I think it's really about the songwriters. I think, Saxon wrote great songs. Priest wrote great songs. Millet is a great songwriter, and I think that's the constant in these bands that doesn't go away, and that's why these albums are so great. It's lucky for us, we have great producers like Andy Sneap and these guys that can make these albums sound better than they've ever sounded.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking like the new Priest album. You're absolutely right. It's just bone-crunchingly fresh and powerful. It's just a good songwriting, dude. And it's people that want to do it for the love of doing it. I was listening to the Priest album last week, just thinking, my God, it just sounds so great, so fresh and crisp.
You worked with some really killer musicians on the Empires of Eden stuff, Stu. And if you had to pick a musician that you could work with that you've never worked with, and pick one person, who would it be?
Blackie Lawless.
Really?
No question. He's one of the guys I've wanted to write for ever since I started doing Empires of Eden, and every time I wrote to management and whatnot, I just got nowhere at all. But he's somebody that I would love to write for. Obviously, like Michael Kiske would be incredible to write some music for, but I think musically it's probably pretty predictable what I'm going to do for him, right? Whereas with Blackie, I'd really like to do a Blackie Lawless solo album for that guy. I think it would be really heavy and something that I would like to really hear as a fan. And I think that's as you know me well. As a fan, I want to create albums that I would want to hear. Mm-hmm. And, Dee Snider would be great too. There's so many great names. Like, I love Dee's voice. He's just full of conviction, great lyricist. But, Blackie would be at the top of the list.
Well, I've interviewed Blackie Lawless several times over the years, and I'll tell you what, he's one of the smartest people that I have ever spoken to, and I really love the way that he at least expressed himself and conducted himself, and a guy who has always been awesome to deal with, at least in my dealings with him.
Yeah, he's an intriguing guy to me. I just, even like the bad Wasp albums, when I say that with the deepest respect, I think there are some pretty ordinary Wasp albums I still really like. Which I listen to them and I'm like, yeah, because he means it. But I still can't get past The Last Command for me. I think it's like one of the top 3 greatest metal albums of all time.
Right.
Well, The Last Command for me, and all the way through the Crimson Idol, were just some of the best metal albums that ever came out. And he always had a very unique way of singing that I've always liked as well.
Yeah, look, obviously Blackie owns Wasp and he's always been the singer of Wasp. It's just as a fan, I've always wanted to hear a Blackie album. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's maybe every Wasp album is a Blackie album, but I just think people would lose their shit if he released a great solo album that may be a little bit more power metal style, and a bit more, because obviously the Wasp thing's very rock, it's very rock and roll, and but yeah, big fan, dude, and would love the chance to write some music for that too.
Well, going back to guitar, Stu, and this may be a question for you, but if there's one guitar out there that you could own, any specific year, model, whatever, that you wish you could have that you don't have, what would it be?
Oh, man. Well, that's hard because I just got the Holy Grail, which is the 62 reissue SG. Man, because I've got a lot of my dream axes at the moment. I got some George Lynch guitars, and I tell you what, being a massive Striper fan, I remember growing up worshipping a heavy metal magazine called Metal Edge magazine, and which is extremely hard to find now on the internet. Like, one to buy copies. Anyway, the story is. Oz Fox, there was a photo of Oz Fox from Striper, and he had a Charvel, his striped Charvel in this photo, and, I was just a kid, and I remember looking at that photo with that guitar for years. Excuse me, sorry for cussing. So, yeah, if I was looking for, like, a Holy Grail axe, it'd be that actual painted Charvel, which he might still have, but that would be the Holy Grail axe for me right now.
Right.
Now that you're about a year into this, how was that Night Legion album done for you? I mean, what's the response been like, and how well is that record doing for you right now?
Well, mate, in Europe, it's gone crazy. So I just got a royalty check from the record label from Massacre, and Europe is. I'm absolutely blown away by the sales in Europe because we haven't toured. We only released a clip, and so it's so successful there that it looks like we've immediately got a connection for the next album, which is always how it works. You want to see how the first album sells, whether you're going to sign the second. I think it wasn't promoted real hard in the States. So I think it's been a little quiet in America, but to be fair, we haven't toured on it. And so when you've got a flood of great albums, which people have had, it's kind of hard to compete without touring. But Australia's gone amazingly well. Japan's done really well. I think we just have to get our asses over to the States. I'm actually coming there in 2 weeks to America just for a bit of a break on the West Coast. But I've got to bring Night Legion over and do some shows so, my American brothers can see what we're about.
Stu, any last words to say to the fans that are going to be checking out this interview?
Guys, thanks for listening in. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Please come and check out Night Legion on Facebook, also Deathdealer. Pretty easy stuff to find. If you go to stumarshall.com, stumarshall.com, there's links to everything I'm doing, and we got some killer merchandise we can arrange. As I'm coming to the States, I'll be able to bring some of it with me and actually post from inside the States, which is going to save a lot of money for people. Thank you for sticking with us this far, and Tony, you're an absolute legend, brother. Always good to talk to you, mate. Looking forward to hanging with you and having a few beers one day out towards Chicago way.